So we see addictions as adaptive responses, the body's natural survival strategy to stay alive, and that we link healing from addiction to these neural exercises, these practices that invite ventral energy. And without targeting neuroception and interoception, the body is not going to budge. And this is why I think so many addiction programs are failures, and why so many of us as trauma therapists don't want to do addiction work. Because if you work with addiction just in a top-down way, you just end up getting into power struggles with the client's body, basically. Because through neuroception, the nervous system isn't going to budge if it doesn't feel safe enough. So I think this is why so often when we're working with addiction, we fall into this role of kind of gatekeeper, and then we get into a power struggle, and it just feels lousy. So people don't want to do the work. But from a polyvagal lens and working somatically, it's actually wonderful work to do. Because once you align with the body and with safety, then you're at the heart, the pulse of how it works. And then you can really make progress in helping the body to feel safe enough to reduce harm. So we don't want to prolong these polarized states. We want to move into somatic work so that we can get out of that power struggle. And so here's where I really invite trauma therapists when they tell me that they don't work with addiction. From a polyvagal lens, that doesn't make any sense. And why? I hope you know why. Because bodies cannot survive in sympathetic or dorsal. So they have to find ways to shift back and forth. And those ways become addictive because of neuroplasticity. Because when you travel down that same pathway with the dopamine hit over and over and over again, like we do in the cycle of addiction, bodies get stuck there. And so you're also then, just struggling to try to stay alive. And so how else are you going to do that? How else are you going to shift states? And it doesn't become addictive. So that's why I think when Gabor says, Gabor Maté, that trauma is underlying addiction, I think he's right. If you look at the nervous system, and the thing is, we need to understand more subtly what is trauma. I mean, we talked about this 40 years ago. It's not a new concept, but people forget these things. Complex trauma was around. Bessel van der Kolk was talking about that years ago. It's not an episode necessarily, right? And that I talked about this a lot in this new book, that you can experience feeling really traumatized in a loving family if they don't get you. If you're living in an environment that doesn't feed back to you that you're understood, that's traumatizing for the nervous system because you don't feel safe. Feeling safe means we're understood, people get us, and that we can connect. And so trauma is it's so individual. Each person will experience what feels unsafe in their body in their own way. And we have to become really so sensitized to how we sit with a person and really honor what they're experiencing in their body.